Welcome to the Mystical Truths Podcast. This is Rebecca, and I'm really glad you're here. Let's unlock your world. Do you wake up sometimes and think, what was that all about? That was a lot of random stuff. I'm pretty sure we all do. So I thought it would be fun to talk about what those in non-physical tell us about what's happening during our sleep time and dream states, and how to get the honey from it. Because humans have come up with a lot of ideas about that. But I think there's nothing more accurate than getting our information right from source, or God, or infinite intelligence. You can pick your word. According to the Emmanuel teachings that Pat Rogas received from non-physical, there are 3 categories of dreaming. And it might be even more accurate to say sleep states, and I'll explain that as we go. But first, let's note that in each case, your body is resting and your soul is active. And just like in awake states, these are all about where your focus is. So from least frequent to most frequent. One type is when your focus is more non-physical than when you're awake. Sort of like going home, but not fully. And they say we awaken refreshed. So that's a clue that we've had a focusing more non-physical sleep state. Another is when you travel out of body and you go where love calls you, helping others in various ways. And they say that we may wake a bit tired from these because it's been sort of an active sleep state, but that we should appreciate that because we've been busy. We've been doing some great things. And I found that we may not always recall that. We probably most often don't recall anything about it, but I have had other people say to me, you came to me in my dream last night, and I just wanted to thank you. That's really interesting because I usually don't remember that. So let's consider, though, that those first 2 that I just mentioned aren't really what we consider to be dreams. That's why I like sleep state. But they belong as categories because you may occasionally remember pieces and interpret them as a dream. But I think when we do remember pieces of them, it's so real and positive that we can distinguish the difference between that or one of those and an actual dream. So the most frequent is what we consider to be a dream. And that's when they tell us your awareness lifts from the physical body and sort of floats nearby, translating the day's activities or thoughts, which is where dream interpretation comes in handy. And to help us understand that, the Abraham Hicks teachings explain that dreams tell how you're trending, how you're flowing, where you're headed. And they mean that interpreting them can provide guidance. Because just like in awake time, your sleeping dream state is created by what you think and how you feel about it. So your dreams are evidence of how or where your life is flowing, of what's unfolding because of what and how you've been thinking. And that means there's no escaping how life works. The proof is in our awake time and in our sleep time, which is wonderful to know. It's really good stuff. Abraham also tells us that if your dreams contain things that you do like or want, know that you're trending that way. If, on the other hand, they contain things that you don't like or don't want, it's just evidence that you're trending or moving or flowing that way. It's pretty simple. They say it's advanced announcement of what you're creating some version of. So if you think about it, dreams are manifestations of thoughts without filters. They tell us that we don't limit ourselves in dreams like we do in awake life. And that's why the scenarios are so without limits, so bizarre sometimes. Our filters are off. Dreams of frustration come from a vibrationally steady state frustration. Ones of fun or bliss come from a pretty steady vibrational state in your waking time of fun or bliss or well-being. And we tend to recall the ones that are jumbled or are problematic or really bizarre. We tend to recall those because there's still expansion to be done there. We're not quite finished with the thought process or the unfolding. And so recurring dreams or repeated dreams are about recurring issue or issues. It's just your dream's way of saying that you're on your way again to some similar situations or similar outcomes. So that's when you look at what's been going on lately. This dream is just telling me that I'm repeating something in my life that I've been through before and may want to do a little work on or clean up. And then the recurring dreams stop. So to get honey from our dreams, they say first you have to accept that you're a blend of non-physical consciousness and this you that you know. It's always a blend whether you're awake or asleep. Then look at the overall vibe. Like, what's the overall vibrational sense of the dream? What's the overall story or the scenario? So stay real broad initially, and then go for what's the feeling of it? Like, what does it feel like? And then you want to get into the symbols. And we'll talk more about all three of these. Bashar, who is translated by Daryl Anka, says, when you awaken and remember a dream, you're allowing your physical mind to construct its interpretation using props and symbols that it's comfortable with. So our recall is our brain using or utilizing props and symbols that we're familiar with or comfortable with to convey the information. So it's best that we don't try to figure out what the dream means or what it's there for, but to just listen and feel, look at what's already there as information. For example, I was teaching a dream interpretation class a while back at a college, and one person said that they have a recurring or repeated dream of a toilet overflowing. Like, it's gross, it's dirty. And this person said, I know something's wrong and I really have to go, but I can't do anything about it. And this was a pretty big class. 4 other people in that class raised their hands and said, I've had that same kind of dream. There were a little bit of variations, like one said hers was a hole in the ground instead of a toilet. So, but still it had the same underlying message to it. And I said, that's a pretty easy dream to interpret. Because if you think about the gross stuff, the crap in your life that won't flush, it just won't go away, that's a clue, right? You know something's wrong. You have to relieve yourself or relief yourself, get some relief, but you feel powerless to a situation. So we take that information and we look at it and ask, how does that match my life? Like, what's going on lately or what's going on again that says that says there's just all this crap that I can't do anything about. And it's too much. It's overwhelming. I really need relief, but I feel powerless to this situation. Before we talk more about making sense of your dreams, let's take a quick look at the types of dreams. There are various types of dreams, according to research, that I think are interesting to take a look at. So one type is daydream. Now, this is not a sleep thing. They say that we daydream on average 70 to 120 minutes a day, which is probably not nearly enough. Daydreaming is classified as a level of consciousness between sleep and wakefulness. It occurs during our waking hours when we let our imagination carry us away. As our mind begins to wander and our level of awareness decreases, we lose ourselves in our imagination or our imagined scenario. We can create wonderful things from our imagination. So if you're daydreaming about things that don't feel good, not helping. It's not helping you. Switch. When you realize you're doing that, switch and just daydream about things that feel good. Another type of dream, or types kind of dreams, are the intuitive ones. Now, this we can sort of divide in two, because you can actually dream of these, or you can have what I call being in an easy state of receiving. Under this category would be telepathic, dreams, clairvoyant, prophetic, healing. And keep in mind here that when you sleep, your body is always rejuvenating and healing. So we're talking about information in this dream about how you can get more relief or healing in your waking time. So, for example, if I'm dreaming of one of these intuitive types, maybe it's a dream that my pool collapses and there's just water everywhere. And wake up and think, does that mean my pool is going to collapse and it's going to go everywhere? If it feels good and it feels like it's information, then you might want to take a look at your pool. But if it feels bad or it feels more dreamy than information-y, so to speak, then that's what it is. I would take a look at your emotions. Water or generally is a symbol for emotions. Have your emotions been overflowing lately? Are you about to burst? Or do you need to relieve some pent-up emotions? Or on the real intuitive receiving side, if you dream about getting a new pool and it just feels really good, the old pool comes down, the new pool goes up, and you haven't really thought about that. That could be intuitive information saying it's helpful to go ahead and look at the pool and consider a replacement. And, also I want to say that when they are the actual intuitive, not dream type, but you're in a sleep state, but you're intuiting clairvoyantly, prophetically, whatever, the information should always feel good. If it feels calm, if it feels good, if it feels vibrant, then that is you receiving information from your higher self from the other side, because it's never negative. It can be about things that we call negative, like healing. It can be about a health condition, but it has a really good feel to it, or it has a solution to it. And there are also, in this intuitive category, you could put visitations, because sometimes you have a dream that is prophetic or telepathic, and it is a receiving dream. But then sometimes you also have dreams that are so vibrant that you know that you're not alone in that dream. You actually have the sense of another soul or souls being with you, communicating with you, having an experience with you. I remember a few months after my mother passed, I was just in that beautiful place between sleep and awake. And she was right there, so vibrant in front of me. Didn't say a word. I could feel everything that she was conveying. And it was very real and vibrant and very, very brief, but it was amazing. That I would call a visitation. That was her, the energy of her presenting herself to me. So then we have the third, and that's the ordinary dream. This is where we're sorting and making sense of life. So under this category, you could say we have physical dreams that result from an outside influence while you're asleep, like a siren from a fire truck, and then you start dreaming about a fire truck or some type of a siren. There are lucid dreams where you can control the dream because you're aware that you're dreaming. You're asleep, you're dreaming, but you're aware you're dreaming. These are really interesting. You can also decide what to dream about before you go to sleep in some cases. So this may be a more direct understanding or awareness of you and your higher self, your physical self, your higher self, sort of doing this together. I heard there's a Tibetan tradition that the lucid dreams are considered to be dream yoga. So that's a thought. And then there are the recurring dreams. They repeat with little variation. And generally, once you find your solution, once you clean things up in your physical world, they stop. Nightmares generally are about a really strong message, a fear or a really problematic issue that's unresolved, or maybe even post-traumatic stress and or past life recall. Could be either or. It pays to take a look at your daytime life. If there are fears that you're dealing with, if there's been trauma in an adult or a child, then I would look there first. But if there's information that is not relating to your physical life here, and these nightmares keep happening, then it might be worth looking into the idea of, could this be past life recall? And research tells us that nightmares are common in children, typically beginning around age 3 and occurring to up around age 7 or 8, they fade away. And that could be for two reasons, because, around the age 2 or 3, you're starting to realize there's a lot of contrast in this world. This is a big place. There's a lot going on. It's not all friendly. Maybe scary things happen. So that could be just a typical nightmare. But this is also when we see past life memories in some kids happening during their sleep time. Just something from a previous life that they need a little help letting go of or gaining a different perspective about. And then the nightmares can fade and go away. So always information. And then there are epic dreams. They're dreams that are just so big, so compelling. They're so vivid that you just can't ignore them. And the details tend to stay with you for most of your life, if not the rest of your life. Years ago, I had an epic dream, and I was in my early 30s, I think it was. And in the dream, I was looking at myself in what appeared to be maybe like a casket. And it was amazing. I was beautiful beyond beautiful, wonderful beyond wonderful, and not in the physical way. But in the dream, I was looking at myself laying there, and I was sort of hiding under a shield. You could call it a blanket, maybe. I don't think it was just some kind of a shield. And I wanted to see myself, and I wanted to not hide under that shield, but I was nonetheless. And when I woke up from that dream, I thought it felt so good, but yet it did have that information of, what are you hiding your light for? I was going through a period of just understanding myself more and just beginning to not care so much about what other people think of me or of what I believe in and what I do, how I live, all that kind of stuff. So it was a really helpful dream for that, because it's like I got to see my inner self. So considering the type of dream can really be helpful. And then when we go to the symbols, I think it's helpful to just consider how symbology works a little bit. As in, if you dream of a dove, most people would say that a dove is a universal symbol of love and peace. So that could be why the dove is in the dream. It could be that piece of information. But you have to look at what really stands out. In your culture, if doves are considered a delicacy, I don't know if they are anywhere, but I'm just using this as an example, then that really might stand out more than the universal meaning. If in your personal symbology, in your personal life, if you have been chased or pecked by a dove at one point in your life and it really stood out, and that's what you think of when you think of a dove, well, then the universal and the cultural meanings go right out the window. Your personal meaning should always be the one that stands out when it stands out. That should be the one you use. So you can just consider those as you look at the symbols. Well, does it mean anything universally or in a cultural kind of way, in a personal kind of way? But the personal one should always override the other two. So they tell us before sleep, get into a higher vibration if you can. Make peace with anything that's bugging you. Put it aside if you can, or just make a decision to think about it tomorrow. Acknowledge the inner being part of you, right? Because we're always doing this together, because there's no separation. And then intend or decide to remember any relevant dreams. And then lightly, playfully think about what's going well, what you like, what you would like to dream about. Just keep yourself in a higher vibration as you fall asleep. And then when you wake up, ask yourself, did I dream? Do I remember a dream? And if you do, first note that overall feeling of the dream, the big, broad sense of it. What's the overall feeling? Does it feel tense or frustrating? Did it feel wide open? Was the overall sense being rushed or searching for something? Was the overall sense like everything was just coming together? That's probably the most important information that you'll get from the dream. That's why I always say, get that most important stuff right away before you forget the dream. You can even give it a theme, like too many people in a room, or I have no idea what's going on. Maybe it's something like flying through my workplace. You can even use a tablet or a dream journal and jot this stuff down. Take a look at it over time and just see if you can connect any dots. And we'll talk about some more themes in a minute, but I want to stick with the what to do here. So determine the main symbols. Once you have that overall feel, you've got the overall idea or scenario, then go ahead and take a look at the symbols and what they may mean to you. As in, what does that person represent to me? Because it's oftentimes not about the actual person. It's about what they represent to you as a symbol. In that dream, just then in that dream. In an Abraham talk, a guest said, "Are the people I dream about really there in my dream?" And Abraham's answer was, "As they appear in your dream, it is as you created them to be. As they appear in your physical experience, it is as you created them to be. They behave the way you expect." So we're always creating from our current perspective, always, awake or asleep. Even things like there was a garage in the dream. Well, was the garage open? Did it feel confining? Why did this take place in a garage? Just be curious. Don't try to figure it out. And then if you come across anything, any symbol that was in your dream that you really can't determine it, it's probably not important. So we extract the message of the dream by piecing together the feelings, the symbol, the vibe, because they're not really as cryptic as they look. They may be bizarre, but they're not really that difficult to get the information from if we just relax and take what's there. So let's take a look at a few more of the themes, just to make it a little more clear of how you can get one short theme that holds a whole lot of information in it, just like a picture is worth 1,000 words. If you're dreaming of something like an earthquake or a flood or something that seems like a disaster, that could represent a big turning point in your life or a big change in your life. And I would take a look at what your perception has been about it, because does it really need to be, does it have to go to the point where it's a disaster? Or is it something I can change or make better right now? My dream was probably just trying to say, this is where you're trending. This is going to turn into a disaster, or it has the potential to, but it certainly doesn't have to. Anything that's directional, like up or down, up or down, up or down, up and down, take that literally. What are you going up and down or back and forth with? Are you going in circles? If there's something in the dream, I'm just going in circles. I'm going here and then back again and here and then back again. Where are you going in circles in your everyday life? Sexual dreams are generally considered to be the merging of the male and female energy parts of you. And if there was another person in the dream, you take what that person represents to you or represented to you just in that dream. Because other people, generally in dreams, are some reflection or aspect of ourself, just as they presented to you the feel of them in that dream. If you're wearing a costume or there's some theme about a costume, well, what does a costume generally represent, right? I want to be different than I am, or I'm hiding something. I want to just get in this costume and not let people see me, or, I want to still be in this world, but I want to be in this world behind a facade. There's so many ways you could look at that. Flying, we tend to think of freedom, breaking out of limits. But again, you always want to go with just this dream right now. Falling may represent a loss of control or the fear of having no control. Because when we're falling, we do feel like there's nothing we can do about it. Dreaming of death most often does not mean anybody's going to die. It generally, even in tarot, the death card is a card of big change. And there's always a horizon. There's always something good on the other side of it. It may even mean the changes in you personally. If you're being chased in a dream, are you putting yourself through unnecessary pain or anguish, or is somebody else presenting that in your life? What are your main worries, maybe? What do you feel is biting at your heels? If there's a house or a vehicle, we generally say that they represent your physical body, like the vehicle that you are driving through this life in, or the house, the structure that you are physically focusing through. So what's happening to that vehicle or that house? Is it positive, negative? Does it mean something about your physical body directly? If it doesn't, take what you feel. Like, don't, these are not written in stone by any means. They're suggestions for where you can take your curiosity, but you always want to go with what comes to you, not what you figured out, but what comes to you. So if you remember a dream, there is information for you. And I would interpret it as soon as possible. Don't overdo it. Don't go crazy on the interpretations. But jot down some main points. If you don't have time to really get into it when you wake up, just jot down some main points and come back at it later. Because research tells us that within 5 minutes after awakening, half of the dream content is forgotten. Within 10 minutes, 90% is gone, which is fine. It's not a big deal because life will bring it back around. You'll be reinformed in your daytime or your sleep time, because life is always a great teacher and it just keeps teaching and guiding and helping. So some more little tidbits that research has drawn conclusions about is that everybody dreams. Simply because you don't remember your dream doesn't mean that you didn't dream. They say dreams are indispensable. A lack of dream activity can mean protein deficiency or a personality disorder. Now, keep in mind, if you're not remembering your dreams, it doesn't mean that you're not dreaming. And actually, to not remember your dreams is kind of a good sign, right? Because whatever you dreamt about, you figured it out. You worked it out. There's nothing that you need to remember about it. Blind people do dream. Whether visual images appear in their dream just depends on if they were blind at birth or they became blind later in life. But, vision isn't the only sense we have that constitutes a dream. So sound and touch and smell all can play into the basis of a dream. And they say studies have shown that our brain waves are more active when we're dreaming than when we're awake, which makes perfect sense to me because we would be more connected with our inner being, with non-physical, in the sleep states than we are in the awake state. They say dreamers who awaken right after the REM sleep, the REM sleep, are able to recall dreams more vividly than those who sleep all the way through and then remember their dreams. So it's good to know, that while you sleep, you may be refreshing your soul self in the non-physical, or going where you can be helpful, or simply hovering not far from the physical body and sorting out the stuff of your life. Because we're always up to something, whether we're awake or asleep. And sleep is required here because we need to check out of this dense environment every so many hours. And we need to check in with our divineness and a higher perspective of what's going on in our waking time. So I believe that understanding our dreams help us understand our lives and each other. So when you interpret your dreams, have fun with it. Take it easy. Go for that overall feel. Like, what's that main theme or that main sense that I get with the dream? Go there before you go for the symbols. You'll get so much more out of it. And like I said, you can keep a dream journal and jot down some notes about it, but I really wouldn't go overboard with it because we just don't need to. Life is always teaching us. Life is always guiding us. So take what you get from your dream interpretation, appreciate it, and go on with your day. So I hope you all have sweet, informative dreams. Any teachings that I've mentioned during today's talk, I'll have references in the show notes if you're interested in that. And if you want help interpreting your dreams, or you have a dream that you'd like to share on this show, you can find me at mysticaltruths.com.